Whether you think the invention of the internet has been overall beneficial or detrimental to society, one thing that it has introduced without question to basically everyone on Earth on a level almost never seen before is niche. When the internet started to be widely adopted in the early 2000s, it brought with it easy access to discussions of pretty much any topic imaginable, no matter how specific, as well as a seemingly endless supply of like-minded people in isolated and sometimes massive communities to chat with, collaborate with, and for the worst of the worst, to take advantage of. You're probably familiar with at least a few of these online communities: furries, the FNAF fandom, art Twitter, and the subject of today's video, bronies.
Are you fucking with me?
No, it's called clapping, Dad.
A community of mostly adult men and women that bond over their love of My Little Pony: Friendship is Magic, a TV show about a group of magical horses that, for lack of better words, was primarily meant to be watched by little girls. Now, I want to make it clear that not all bronies are bad people. In fact, like almost every online community, the vast majority of them are just normal people that share a kind of weird common interest. That being said, however, it's inevitable that the fundamental concept of grown men forming a community around a children's TV show would attract some unusual people, and especially since the brony community is big enough to give a few lucky souls the honor of being what they call horse famous, this perceived power can at times go to the heads of some very strange, disturbed, or even outright disgusting individuals. The subject of this video is a person that I and many others would easily describe as all three. A man who used his massive influence within his niche to commit some truly horrible and disgusting acts. A man who, despite an absolutely absurd amount of evidence being compiled against him and his actions, managed to get away with his crimes nearly scot-free. This is the story of one Andy Stein, also known as MandoPony. Andy Stein, born August 27, 1988, was a prominent musician within the brony community and one of the earliest people to achieve the mantle of being horse famous, the brony nickname for being a well-recognized public figure within their group. Andy was a member of the brony community almost from the very start, creating his YouTube channel, MandoPony, by the way that's Mando as in mandolin, not Mandalorian, only 1 year after the first airing of Friendship is Magic. He posted his first couple of videos on the same day as the creation of his channel, the first being a chiptune remix of the show's main theme, and the other being an original song centered around the show, also in the genre of chiptune. Over the next few months, Andy would post several different songs in various styles, both originals and covers, until December 12th of 2011, when he, in collaboration with another bronycore artist called Acoustic Brony, yes, these are all real names, uploaded an original My Little Pony themed rock song called I'll Fly Higher. Despite its crude homebrew mixing and off-tempo singing, the song was extremely well received by the community at the time, garnering over 500,000 views to this day. Andy would then go back to uploading other videos for a while, mostly acoustic covers of Christmas songs for the holiday season, before on January 24th of 2012, when he would drop the song that he is, at least in the brony community, the most well remembered for. Loyalty, another collaboration with Acoustic Brony, was a truly huge success and launched Andy into horse fame a mere few months after starting his channel. The song would go on to amass well over 2 million views in the following years, and again, despite the roughness of its production, was widely regarded as one of the most influential songs in the brony music scene, and even landed him a shout out at BronyCon 2012 from Daniel Ingram, the composer behind the official music for Friendship is Magic.
Oh, Mando writes some killer songs too. I gotta give you credit for some of those great songs you've been writing, man. Really good stuff.
Andy would keep uploading music to his channel on a somewhat consistent basis over the next 3 years, and while his songs were generally popular and well received, he was never able to replicate the success he had achieved with Loyalty. That was, at least, until Andy decided to start venturing into neighboring waters, and do the thing that every internet fandom musician is pretty much obliged to do at some point. He made a song about Five Nights at Freddy's. The song in question was titled Survive the Night, and it, even by the standards of music that isn't about video games, absolutely exploded in popularity. As of right now, the song has over 44 million views, and is still the most viewed video on the MandoPony channel by far. After a brief break to release a Christmas album that literally no one cared about, Andy would go on to make several more FNAF-related songs, the first 5 of which, including Survive the Night, sit comfortably at over 10 million views each. It seemed that Andy had found his niche, and while he still donned the MandoPony name and frequently incorporated incorporated his pony persona into the branding of his channel, he had expanded from the brony community into the larger autocore community, making songs about games like Undertale, Animal Crossing, and The Legend of Zelda, gaining millions of views on each. These videos helped Andy climb his way into levels of popularity that he had never experienced before. Around the same time, he even started dating and got engaged to one Sabrina Alberghetti, a storyboard artist for Friendship is Magic, whom he would go on to marry in 2015. Sometime around 2016, Andy befriended fellow autocore musician Nathan Sharp, better known as Nate Wants to Battle. Andy started collaborating with him on music and was invited on tour with him in 2017 on the Cool and Good Tour, a 7-day tour across 7 different cities in California, along with fellow creator Ama Lee. Nate even got Andy to join his record label, Give Heart Records, and the two evidently became very close friends, going on to release several songs together, mostly covers of songs from Green Day and from Sonic games. Overall, it seemed that things were looking up for Andy. He had a successful career making music online, was happily married, and was well liked and respected by his peers. He had even begun playing live shows on tour and at My Little Pony fan conventions. However, we all know where the story is going. As it seems with so many things in the modern day and age, nothing good lasts forever. And in June of 2020, Andy Stein's career, the one that he had spent almost a decade building to the peak of internet stardom, would come tumbling down in less than a month. In the middle of June 2020, Andy would begin exhibiting strange behavior on his personal Twitter account, tweeting on the 15th that he was not well and was seeking help. Judging from all the comments that the post received at the time, including one from Jacksepticeye, it seems that this was fairly unexpected, although many people replied in support. They obviously didn't know it at the time, but this was most likely a very early sign of what was to come. A mere 3 days later, Andy would return to Twitter, mostly posting poetry, song lyrics, and retweeting his wife's complaints about fireworks, until June 23rd, when Andy would post his last tweet for almost 9 months. Following this sudden disappearance would come a flurry of evidence from all over the internet, exposing Andy to be one of the most prolific predators in the history of the fandom, possibly even in the history of the internet. The amount of evidence posted and the amount of sources it came from was truly staggering, and to be honest, because of both this and because a lot of said evidence has since been deleted, either through the people who originally posted it deleting their accounts, or through Andy reporting it and getting it taken down, a lot of the original evidence has been very poorly archived. Even with the use of the Wayback Machine, there were a lot of loose ends I simply wasn't able to tie together into a cohesive timeline. Because of this, I'm going to be focusing mostly on the 2 most well-documented victims of Andy Stein, but let it be known that I found screenshots, Twitter posts, and YouTube videos that almost undoubtedly prove that these 2 were only a small portion of the people that MandoPony preyed on. Sometime in early July of 2020, a Twitter account was created under the name Exposing Andy Stein, and on the 12th of that same month would begin posting and archiving a mountain of evidence that Andy, over the past year and a half, had been using Instagram and Snapchat to send inappropriate messages to several underage fans, some of whom were only 14 or 15 years old. The primary source of this evidence came from over 100 now deleted screenshots of a Snapchat conversation between Andy and a girl named Kaylee Young, of which I was able to recover 51 using the Wayback Machine. Emphasis on that last name, by the way, because as I go over these screenshots, I want you to keep in mind that Kaylee is 17 years old in all but 4 of them. This has been confirmed by comparing the date on the Snapchat messages, the earliest of which is on April 9th of 2019, against photos of Kaylee's driver's license and school ID, which confirmed that not only was she 17 while Andy was sending her nude photos, but also that she was still a junior in high school. Keep in mind that Andy, being born in 1988, was over 30 years old at the time and had been married for almost 5 years. I won't go over all of these screenshots because, well, first of all, I don't want to subject you all to Andy Stein's nude photos, even if they are heavily censored, and 2, because once you hear the important stuff, it's pretty easy to see that this is basically undeniable evidence that Andy both sent and solicited nude photos from this girl. The first one contains a straight-up admission that Andy wanted to do Kaylee, followed by a completely unsolicited photo of his his bare ass. Another screenshot, one of the most damning, contains a snippet of a conversation in which Andy straight up asks her for a nude photo, followed by him immediately telling her to keep it secret, and that Andy doesn't want anyone finding out about him sending her inappropriate photos, as well as an admission that the account he was using for all of this was secret, and that basically the only thing he used Snapchat for was grooming Kaylee. And even worse, in the next screenshot after that, he says, "It's probably wrong of me to be attracted to you, but I can't help it. As long as it's kept quiet and as long as you're comfortable, is that okay? And it won't progress beyond just flirt/lewd moments. XD." So anyways, he then tells her that he wants to meet up with her in person. Andy also, for some reason, confided in Kaylee during this time that he and his wife had been having marital issues, and that while he apparently still loved her, he hadn't been intimate with her in over a year and felt as though their connection was growing weaker, which of course is a completely reasonable justification for cheating on your wife with a high schooler. Probably one of the most puke-inducing ones is screenshot 38 out of 51, in which Andy sends the message, "The cuddle cravings are kicking in so hard. Ha 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 ha." Keep in mind that this is a 30-year-old married man talking to a 17-year-old junior in high school. Just for a little bit of perspective, when Kaylee was born, Andy would have been a freshman in high school. He is nearly double her age in this screenshot. These Snapchat messages would continue from April all the way up until October, when it seems that, after Kaylee turned 18, Andy grew disinterested in continuing to talk to her, only occasionally sending long-winded messages about mental health and catching up. The second victim, although there is far less evidence of Andy's grooming of them, is somehow even worse than the first, because taking place in early 2020, this victim was only 15 when it all happened. Meanwhile, Andy was now over 31. The second victim, who goes by the name Dallin, told the story over their Instagram story, posting screenshots of a series of messages on Discord. These messages relayed how, in August of 2019, around the same time that Andy was finishing up preying on Kaylee, Dallin had sent Andy a message wishing him happy birthday, and Andy had responded to their message with a simple thank you. In January of the following year, they reached out again to Andy after having troubles with mental health, most likely because they saw Andy as a caring figure that would support them in a time of need. Andy would take nearly 2 months to respond, but once he did, it would apparently take him only a week to start sending Dallin pictures of his ass, as well as NSFW furry artwork. Dallin would eventually tell Andy to stop sending them these lewd pictures as it made them uncomfortable, but Andy seemed to either not get the hint or just not really care. Andy would go on to solicit photos of Dallin, apparently using the excuse of them being for references for artwork, but would comment on the photos saying that they turned him on and got him excited. Andy also sent them the standard groomer messages like "you're so mature for your age" and complimenting them on how pretty they were. Not only that, but he further tried to basically bribe Dallin into being comfortable with him by buying them a dating simulator game on Steam called Monster Prom. Possibly the most alarming part of Dallin and Andy's relationship, however, was that at some point, Andy started insinuating that he wanted to fly Dallin out to go on tour with him in Europe, telling them that because they did kickboxing, he could have them pose as his security. But in reality, it was pretty obvious that this was an excuse to meet up with Dallin in person for, let's just say, intimate reasons. Thankfully, Dallin would eventually get tired of Andy's constant flirting and would tell him to knock it off yet again, at which point they stopped talking permanently. Dallin would also further confirm that Andy did in fact send them nude photos and even several videos, and while they state that Andy never fully exposed himself to them, some of the stuff they describe is pretty horrific and definitely still counts as pornography. Unfortunately, as stated in the Discord/Instagram messages, Dallin no longer had most of the incriminating screenshots due to Andy pressuring them into deleting a large portion of their conversation, as well as at some point moving their conversation over to one of Andy's alternate Instagram accounts. However, the few screenshots that we do have are sickening to say the least, and are somehow even more cringe than his conversations with Kaylee. Some highlights include, "I don't want to be a creepy older guy, but you are so beautiful and your body is so gorgeous. Only let men and women touch it if they treat it like a goddamn sacred temple. You're so gorgeous and you're in Ravenclaw and you're into Overwatch. They said the perfect woman doesn't exist. They lied. If we met IRL, you'd know immediately how attracted I am to you. Ha 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 ha. I'm such a simple dude. You'd recognize it in a heartbeat. Lol. I hope either by me or your girlfriend or some other reason you have your first bang water sound sometime soon. I don't mean to make light of this situation because obviously all of these messages are in actuality extremely messed up, but I mean, come on, your body is a sacred temple. Really? Again, I can't restate this enough. At the time these messages were sent, Dallin was 15 years old and Andy was 31. He was quite literally over double their age. As if that wasn't already enough, an anonymous third victim made a post to Dallin's Instagram account claiming that yes, the allegations were all true and that they had been groomed by him for multiple months and had proof of it, but due to fear of retaliation, they would not be sharing the images publicly and instead would be sending them to their local police department. The Exposing Andy Stein Twitter account also shared the story of one REC who recounted a very similar experience to the other victims of being sent explicit messages by Andy over Snapchat and Instagram, except in her case, she was not only just 14 years old when this happened, she was also apparently homeless, leaving her in an incredibly vulnerable position, making it somehow even more messed up that Andy would take advantage of her. Now, because I'm making a video where I assert that all of this evidence is true, I want to back up my claims with some hard facts, just for anyone still doubting that this is real. For starters, it's safe to say that the screenshots of the Snapchat conversation between Kaylee and Andy are 100% undeniably real. First of all, it contains multiple photos of Andy, nude and otherwise, which would be incredibly hard to convincingly fake, especially back in 2019 before AI image manipulation became as accessible to the public as it is today. Some may say that it could have been photoshopped by hand and the messages from the screenshots of the Snapchat could have been faked using 2 accounts or photoshopped from scratch, but there are literally over 100 photos of these conversations, an amount that would have not only been extraordinarily time-consuming to edit, but entirely unnecessary, as convincing evidence could have been made with just a few pictures. But no, we got 51 recoverable screenshots in total. Hey guys, future Sacyrus here. So as I was editing this video, I went back to get footage of the Wayback Snapshot of all the Snapchat messages between Andy and Kaylee, and for some reason, I can see all of them now. All 108 of them, I think. I don't know why I couldn't see them before. It literally never loaded more than 51 of them up until now. But let's be honest, I don't really need to go over them. I think I've already shown you enough. So back to the video. Also, we have pictures of multiple documents that confirm that Kaylee was underage at the time of these messages being sent. I highly doubt that someone would go out of their way to create not only a fake school ID, but also create a fake driver's license solely for the purposes of fabricating allegations. Again, there's an amount of evidence presented that, if this was somehow all fake, would be completely unnecessary to implicate Andy. Proving that Dallin's story is definitely real is much harder than proving Kaylee's. However, if you read the story that they posted on Instagram very closely, you'll notice a lot of commonalities between their experience with Andy and Kaylee's. Probably the most obvious being the fact that Andy likes to take photos of his bare ass for some reason, and in both cases, Andy expressed a desire to meet up with the victims in person and eventually lost interest in both when it became clear that nothing was going to come of either relationship. And by the way, the word relationship here is in very heavy quotations. In light of everything that had happened, all the allegations from at least 3 different people, and all of the seemingly undeniable evidence, Andy would address his wrongdoings not by apologizing or even fighting the accusations, but by slowly and quietly removing himself from the internet. First, he privatized his Twitter page, then he deleted the Instagram account that he had used to message Dallin, and finally he would disable the comments and dislikes on his YouTube videos. Additionally, many of Andy's friends, after reviewing the evidence for themselves and concluding that the allegations were most likely true, began distancing themselves from him, all coming to a head when several weeks after the evidence was publicly released, Nathan Sharp and Give Heart Records would quietly disassociate themselves with Andy, removing all of the Nate Wants to Battle and MandoPony collabs from the Give Heart Records official channel. This is where I'll step into the narrative for a minute to say that I personally remember all of this happening in real life. I was very active in some of the same communities that Andy was a part of at the time of the allegations, and I even knew a few people that were acquaintances of his. Probably Probably the thing I remember the best from this time is that everyone who knew him, including many fans, pretty much begged him to make at least some sort of response to the allegations, praying that the musician that had been a legendary member of their communities for so long wasn't some kind of horrible predator. But unfortunately, Andy wouldn't respond to the allegations until almost 9 months later. One of the biggest questions presented by this whole situation is, did any legal consequences ever come of this? Obviously, a 31-year-old man messaging multiple underage girls and sending them nude photos is extremely illegal, and according to the message from the anonymous third victim on Dallon's story, an official police report had been filed over Andy's actions, a claim that would be backed up by Andy himself in the statement posted to his Twitter. So he was arrested and tried for his crimes, right? After all, there was, as I said earlier, a true mountain of evidence stacked against him. Well, on March 9th of 2021, Andy would return to Twitter after almost a year of silence with a message from him and his quote, legal team. If you want to read the whole thing, you can pause the video now, but in summary, it essentially said that he had in fact been investigated for several months by the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force as well as the Los Angeles Police Department, and that they had found no evidence of wrongdoing, pedophilia, or sexual relations with any minor. Additionally, he gives the comical statement that he understands that some of his fan interactions may have been too sensitive or too personal, which yeah, that's putting it lightly. While unfortunately nothing would come of this initial investigation, Andy confirmed in a follow-up tweet in August of 2022, over a year and a half later, that there had in fact been a second investigation that also amounted to nothing. I'd like everyone to also take note here that he says, "You don't know the full story, but the police, family, my therapist, and my lawyer do. That should be all that matters." Personally, I think it's a little weird to claim that everyone not knowing the full story doesn't really matter when almost everyone who knows his name thinks he's a groomer and his career has been ruined because of it, but I digress. To be honest, I'm not really sure why this happened. You'd think that considering the amount of evidence that the Exposing Andy Stein account compiled, it wouldn't have taken several days for the police to arrest Andy, much less several months. But let's be honest, this is far from the first time that an online predator like MandoPony has escaped any sort of legal consequences for their actions, and unfortunately, it won't be the last. One factor that most likely contributed to Andy getting off scot-free is that the Exposing Andy Stein Twitter account, the main hub for compiling evidence against Andy, has been taken down multiple times throughout the years, both by the admins of the account in order to prevent Andy from issuing fraudulent DMCA strikes, and by Andy himself reporting the account and getting it suspended. I'm not sure exactly how many times this account has been taken down, but if you scroll through their post history, it is a lot. Because of this, what evidence is available on the account is also very spotty and inconsistent over time. There's a lot of stuff that's visible on the account right now that wasn't visible when I wrote the script for this video, like for example the Snapchat conversations between Andy and Kaylee. Yeah, I did not realize that I did not need to use the Wayback Machine for that, my bad. But there also is a lot of stuff that isn't there now that was just a few weeks ago when I started producing this video. Good job, Twitter, you truly never fail to be on the right side of history. I'd also like to talk very briefly about Andy's wife, Sabrina Alberghetti's response to all of this, because her reaction was, to put it mildly, weird. While initially it seemed like Sabrina's strategy was to just go quiet and try to let the allegations be forgotten, something eventually switched and she decided to start publicly defending Andy on her personal Twitter account, referring to the allegations as BS and something that never happened the way people said it did. Well, at least she admitted that something did happen. Nice Freudian slip there, Sabrina. Honestly, I'm not sure how someone can stay with their significant other after learning that they used their fame and influence to groom and sext multiple underage fans, much less actively defend them, but maybe that's just me. As of right now, the Exposing Andy Stein account is actually still active and is fighting against Andy's remaining supporters, as well as documenting Andy's attempts to take down any video covering his crimes. Throughout all of this account has been the single biggest resource in helping me compile evidence and figure out a comprehensive timeline of the whole ordeal. Without the archiving done by this account and its admins, I would have most likely never been able to make a video with this level of detail, so a big thank you to Exposing Andy Stein on Twitter for making this video possible, as well to all the victims, both named and anonymous, who came out and gave us so much information and evidence about the horrors of Andy Stein. It's truly a shame that he never faced any of the legal repercussions he deserved, but at least his name and reputation are forever tarnished by his actions. Andy, after a long hiatus, came back to YouTube in 2021 with a new song called Trick or Treatin', and he still occasionally posts music on the MandoPony channel, but his view counts almost never reach over 100,000 against his nearly 700,000 subscriber count, and many of his recent uploads have haven't even reached 10,000 views. While we're on the topic of Andy's post-allegation songs, I want to briefly mention that he, in November of 2022, posted a remake of an older song called Witch Hunt. The original was made in 2017, long before any of the information about his actions started to come out, but the decision to re-release this specific song with the new context of the evidence against him makes it pretty obvious that this was related to the allegations, with lyrics like "so many pointed fingers, pitchforks and torches, vigilante justice makes the mob remorseless." The joke's on him though, because after being out for well over a year, the lyric video on YouTube has a measly 10,000 views. Just to remind you, this is a guy who regularly used to get millions of views on his videos. Pathetic. Some may question why I even bothered to make a video about this whole situation in the first place, considering that it's been nearly 5 years since this all went down, with only a few sparse updates from Andy in that time, and it seems that aside from the current admins of exposing Andy Stein, pretty much everyone has forgotten about this entire ordeal. Well, I just answered my own question. Sure, Andy may have had his career effectively ended and severed all of his professional relationships, but despite the literal hundreds of pieces of evidence that he was one of the worst predators the internet had ever seen, he never faced any serious repercussions for what he had done. He got to keep his Twitter account, he got to keep his YouTube channel, which still to this day generates him hundreds of thousands of views a month, he got to keep his wife, who he had been cheating on with underage girls for years, and most disturbingly, he never even got arrested or charged with any sort of crime despite apparently having 2 police investigations conducted on him. Not only that, but as of recently, he's now decided to try and stage a comeback, uploading music and probably trying to get in with a new group of fans who don't know about the allegations yet. The least that the rest of us can do, those of us who know what really happened, who looked at the evidence for ourselves and saw the monster that this man truly is to try to spread awareness in order to make sure that this dangerous predator can never have a home on the internet where he can access and exploit underage fans ever again. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please make sure to like, subscribe, and comment your thoughts down below. I'll be leaving a link to a Google Doc in the description that contains several important links, as well as several more pieces of evidence that I just couldn't work into this video, in case any of you want to go look at it for yourselves. Until next time, my name is Sacyrus, and I'll see you all around. Goodbye.